Hello YouTube, in this installment of the Hypertrophy series, we are going to discuss intensity and volume. Now, understand that those two topics could potentially be made into hour-long videos, and there are certain YouTubers out there who have literal seminars dedicated to those two ideas. That's why I wanted to start the Hypertrophy series, is because I think it's much more easy to digest the information if it's cut in several 10 minutes video instead of cramming everything at once. So here we're going to define in broad terms what volume and intensity are, but I will be going into more details later. There is going to be a video of the Hypertrophy series uploaded every week. And with all the material we have, it's going to be at least a 50 episodes long series. So we have time. So, volume and intensity. We've defined the difference between volume and tonnage. And now we're going to start talking about intensity, which is one of the most important notions to keep in mind when you're programming, be it for strength or size. And here on this channel, we talk about size most of the time. So, volume, we already know what it is. It's the amount of reps you're going to do. It is the amount of sets you're going to do. It also takes into consideration the amount of volumes you work, the amount of muscles you work, sorry. Why? Because it's going to skyrocket the expenditure of energy required to recover from it. The difference between doing high volume for biceps and high volume for legs is going to be widely different. So you need to keep that in mind too. And the direct result of volume is going to be tonnage. Intensity is going to be correlated directly to the ability of your body to move a weight once, meaning that you cannot really start discussing intensity if you don't have a clear idea of what your maximal intensity is. But the notion is more complex than that, because some people reduce it to 1 rep maxes and then they go into RPEs. I personally don't use RPEs because I don't have a clear idea of what my 1 rep max is, and it personally has never stopped me from using intensity as a programming concept or notion. Not saying you shouldn't use RPEs, I'm just saying it wasn't necessary for me. And because I want to keep the experience on this channel original and authentic, I'm not going to be teaching about something I don't know. I don't want to Google something and then just regurgitate the information. So, intensity within the set is also going to be defined by the number of reps you do. This is something I call ramping up the intensity within the set. You can do a set of 12 reps with a weight that is considered to be 70%, so it's a 70% intensity, but the 12th rep on that set is going to be higher in intensity than the rest. Why? Because you're pre-fatigued. And the same notion can be applied to supersets. I personally don't do that very often, but if you pre-fatigue a muscle within a superset and immediately jump into another exercise that involves that muscle, in my opinion, that ramps up the intensity, even if the weight is not supposed to be at that high of a level. Example, you're going to do some bench press. Before the bench press, you do some push-ups. Let's say the weight of the bench press you're going to do is 50% intensity, but you go into it already fatigued from the push-up. There are two ways to see that. Either the intensity didn't change, but the ability of your body to handle the weight did, or you consider that because the body is tired, it directly impacts the intensity, so it ramps up, so that 50% intensity is now 65%. All of those numbers to say what? The importance of intensity for bodybuilding is you should always be within a certain window of it. Meaning that volume is nice and it is incredibly important for hypertrophy and for bigger muscles, but if the volume doesn't fall inside the right window of intensity, it's not going to be relevant. Those terms will be discussed, don't worry about it. But it's either going to be junk volume on one side or the other. And no one talks about this side of the spectrum because most of the time people do this. They do volume in an intensity window that is not challenging enough, and therefore what stops them is not muscular failure, it is cardiovascular failure or mechanical failure, terms that will also be defined in this series. What we want is the exercise to target the right muscle and that muscle to be the limiting factor. You need to stop because that muscle cannot go anymore. Now that muscle has went to failure, it has experienced the right intensity and it will grow from that. This is what we want. This is the distinction between two notions that when combined create size, volume and intensity. You cannot progress, you cannot understand programming if you cannot understand these terms, and if these two terms are not put together to create a program, it is going to be a bad program. You cannot go in creating a certain training regimen blind. You need to know what is going to be challenging enough to create results, but on the other hand, you also need to know the amount of the challenging stimulus you're going to need to be able to create that result and also for it to be sustainable. So that's going to be it for today. As I said, I want these videos to be nice and small so that they're easier to consume for you guys and so that we don't go too far. We will be talking about specificities of volume and intensity a ton. I really appreciate you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think and have a good day.